Hi, welcome to the devotion today. We're continuing into a new chapter from the book From Creation to Revelation. This week we'll be focusing on the books of Judges and Ruth. We've worked our way all the way through the book of Joshua. The book of Judges starts, the first few chapters are with the death of Joshua, and the book wrestles with a couple of things. The Israelites have always been a rural people up to this point. They've never been part of an urban society. And they've only had leaders that have been lifted up. They don't have kings at this point, so they're kind of in this in-between stage where they're having judges, and the judges are listed throughout the book. And if you read Judges straight through, which is not that hard to do, it's a short book, here's the trajectory of things. Downward. As I've preached on before, you can watch how women are treated at the beginning of the book and how they're treated at the end. And that is how God judges them. The best they're going to be treated is at the very beginning, and it just gets progressively worse at the end. And the ways that this keeps getting explained in the book is this phrase keeps getting repeated over and over again. It says, the Israelites again did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. And the Lord, forgetting the Lord their God. One time they're worshiping the Baals and Asherahs. The other time God strengthened another king, Moab, against Israel. It just keeps happening again and again. So they get a leader, the leader rescues them, saves them, they go back to their old ways. It starts all over again and gets progressively worse. And one of the things I think that Judges teaches us and speaks to us about, not just in modern times, but specifically where we are right now in this moment in 2020, is that our capacity for doing evil over and over and over and over again, despite being rescued, despite being taught differently, despite the evidence being clear that that's not the way to be faithful, we just keep doing it until it gets to a breaking point. And Judges holds what I believe is the worst story in the whole Bible at the very end of the Levite's concubine, where she is not only thrown out of the house to a mob who attacks her and assaults her, but then the Levite who owned her, I suppose, was so angry about it that his decision was to then cut her body into 12 parts and send them to the 12 tribes of Israel. So the Bible is full of stories. Some of them are hopeful, and some of them are there to teach us what not to do and how not to be. There is a lot of violence in the Bible. People are treated poorly, dangerously, killed under terrible circumstances. And yet, we have included these stories. Now, sometimes I think we've included them because we still cling to old stories and old histories that conquering is a sign of God's favor, which I think we can let go of these days. But I also really like the idea that we include these stories because the Bible doesn't just talk about people and God's people at their best, but that God shows all of who we are in the scriptures, that our stories with God reveal everything about us, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Both what we're capable of for good when it comes to faith, but also just how deep and rooted sin really is within each of us. So, and that's meant to remind us of how desperately we need God, how we can't get out of this on our own, but that we are in a relationship with God, we're in a covenant with God, that a covenant is not one-sided but two-sided, that God is an active participant in this relationship, and so are we, for good or for bad, but that we have the ability to be active in this. And so we turn to these stories because they are our stories too. And we can't run away from them because they make us uncomfortable. I remember being shocked the first time I read these stories in Phyllis Trickle's text, T-E-X-T, Texts of Terror, and being horrified that these would be included in the Bible. But the older I get, the longer I'm in ministry, the more that I learn about the world, both in ways of hopefulness, but also in being honest and real about the ways that evil exists in the world. It reminds me that the Bible keeps speaking to us, that it's still relevant, that it's still calling to challenge us, not just on the stories that we love and that make us feel good, but on the stories that will stretch us and move us to a new place, to think a new way, to feel a new way, to have faith in a new way. And that we can do that because we're doing it with God. And that God will give us the strength and the fortitude to do this hard work, and that on the other side of it is a deeper, richer, more meaningful faith on the other side. And so that's our goal today, is to be willing to sit with the discomfort of some of the hardest stories to read in the Bible. And in that spirit, let's go to God in prayer. God of everything, the good and the bad, who claims and loves us even though you know exactly who we are. We're so grateful for your ongoing presence, for your steadfast love and faith in us, even when I'm sure it's hard for you. To see us continually do evil in your sight and in your eyes, and yet you still show up for us. You still keep trying to show us a new way, a different way, a way filled with justice, filled with compassion, filled with grace. So pour out your Spirit upon us. Give us what we need in order to sit with our own discomfort, to face the challenges ahead, to take up your yoke, to be your hands and feet and hearts and minds in this world, to not be afraid, to do the work of faith, of following your Son, Jesus Christ, in whose name we pray all these things. Amen. As always, my friends, be well, be safe, and today continue to be brave.